632. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A very, very good evening to you and a happy St Patrick's Day. It's Monday the 17th of March and this is Farage with me, Martin Daubney, keeping you company tonight. On tonight's show, shocking new statistics have revealed that thousands of migrants are using so-called skilled worker visas to claim asylum. But bear in mind, some of those skilled workers work in kebab shops. Now, is this scheme providing a back door for migrants to come and stay in the UK? And up to 1,000 prisoners who have already been released early and recalled could be released early again. Have the government completely lost control? And a senior MP and member of the Defence Select Committee, a Liberal Democrat, has warned that Britons should be expected to be conscripted if the UK enters into an armed conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Just how worried should we be? And would you be prepared to fight should it come to that? But all of that and much more. How about we send the politicians first? Anyway, I digress. Let's crack on. Here's the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Martin. Just after 7 o'clock, our top stories. The Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall says controversial changes to the welfare system will ensure there is trust and fairness. The government's facing opposition from campaign groups and some Labour MPs ahead of expected cuts to the benefit system designed to get more people back into work. They're expected to be announced tomorrow. Well, Downing Street says there's a moral and economic case for reforming the system, and the cuts being introduced are not because of the UK's economic situation. Well, Liz Kendall.
I want to say there has understandably been lots of speculation about the government's reforms to social security, and I want to assure the House, and most importantly the public, that we'll be coming forward with our proposals imminently to ensure there is trust and fairness in the social security system and to ensure that it is there for people who need it now and for years to come.
Well, Nigel Farage has presented 29 councillors who've joined Reform UK as he attempts to move on from the row over the suspension of fellow MP Rupert Lowe. The new Reform councillors, who've joined from a number of parties, including the Conservatives, Labour and Lib Dems, were introduced at an event in London. It takes the party's total number of council seats to more than 100. It comes, though, as some Reform members have expressed concern about the party's leadership and the suspension of Rupert Lowe over allegations he threatened the party's chairman. Mr Farage was pressed on that by our political editor, Christopher Hope, and on speculation Reform are considering doing a deal with the Conservatives to unite the right.
I don't know what you're talking about. You know, can you even imagine if we contemplated a deal with the Conservatives? Half our voters are stay at home. They don't want the Conservative Party. They've been failed by it. They want something new. They want something fresh. They want something with genuine ideas and values.
You mentioned just finally there, Rupert Lowe. Is he dead to you? Can he get back in if he's cleared by the investigation or the KC?
Well, let's just see what the investigations say. I wasn't very happy last week. He suggested that I'd try to stop him talking about rape gangs. I mean, nonsense. But look, let's wait and see.
Meanwhile, climate change protesters have interrupted a speech by the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, at an to commemorate Margaret Thatcher. And Ms Badenoch had only uttered a few words at the start of her address at the Centre for Policy Studies when she was interrupted by a heckler holding a banner that said "Abolish billionaires." Well, the heckler was ejected from the hall by members of the audience before another protester called out about the cost of living crisis. Well, Ms Badenoch could be heard to say that Baroness Thatcher could hardly be blamed for the rising cost of living. More than 20 countries are understood to be involved in Sir Keir Starmer's coalition of the willing peacekeeping efforts, according to a briefing from Downing Street. It comes as Donald Trump has said he'll speak to Vladimir Putin on Tuesday about ending the war in Ukraine and dividing up certain assets. The US president said he and Putin will discuss land and power plants when they hold talks tomorrow. The Princess of Wales has marked St Patrick's Day with the Irish Guards Regiment in London. Catherine met soldiers who've recently returned from Iraq and presented the traditional sprigs of shamrock to officers and guardsmen at Wellington Barracks. Now, the Princess, who's been the colonel of the regiment since 2023, missed the celebrations last year after she was diagnosed with cancer. Catherine later joined the soldiers for a drink. She put some money behind the bar and said it was the least she could do. Also seen there sipping or perhaps nursing a half pint of Guinness. Finally, King Charles has welcomed the new Prime Minister of Canada to Buckingham Palace. It is part of Mark Carney's first foreign trip since being sworn in and is being seen as a show of support to Canadians from their head of state after President Trump repeatedly said he wants Canada to become the 51st US state. Well, Mr Carney, the former Governor of the Bank of England, has recently been meeting Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street. Plenty more to come from me. I'll be back with that in an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Splendid. Now, welcome to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, on this Monday evening on St Patrick's Day. Now, thousands of migrants who came to the UK as so-called skilled workers have claimed asylum in an attempt to remain in the country, and that is according to data uncovered by the National Audit Office. Now, the watchdog revealed there had been a 100-fold increase in migrants with skilled worker visas claiming asylum in the UK. Now, that's up from just 53 claims in 2022 to an astonishing rise to 5,300 claims in the first 10 months of 2024. So is the skilled visa scheme just being abused? And is it being used as a backdoor to gain entry into Britain through the cat flap? Well, joining now to discuss this is the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster. Kevin, always a pleasure to have your company on the show. A lot of people looking at these figures will be saying this just does not add up. First of all, in terms of the numbers, a 100-fold increase, 53 in 2022, 5,300 in the first 10 months of 2024. But the detail is in the so-called skilled visa occupations. Kevin Foster, fast food workers, halal butchers, beauty salon assistants, nail parlour workers, dog groomers. They're not skilled visas. And anyhow, if they're getting in on a visa to do a job and then their visa expires and suddenly it's unsafe to return to their country, something is badly awry.
Yeah, I think, Martin, the moment you look at these figures, it screams some abuse going on. If you go back 3 years, 53 people applying for asylum, having had a skilled worker, and then going to 5,300. Now, we have had in the past incidents where people have come to the country and the situation has genuinely changed in their home country. So, for example, some Burmese students who 4 years ago were here and then there was a military coup in their home country. So there will be very rare occasions where things change. But this does just scream abuse. And with some of the jobs you've listed, this was also where things like salary thresholds are important. Because, for example, paying someone 38 grand to work in a kebab shop is somewhat unlikely and not something someone would be innately wanting to do. And if they are, that should, again, flag the fact that there is abuse going on. But certainly, again, this all takes us back, though, to our asylum system, to things like the ECHR and how we can get rid of people who seek to abuse our immigration system, either arriving here illegally or arriving here for another purpose and then claiming asylum. And that's where, for example, making it easy to get people out of the country by being, more realistic and more actually like the ECHR was in the 1940s and where it's been stretched to, and also where you can't return people to countries like Syria, having third country options.
Kevin, of course, I'm duty-bound to say that this mushrooming of numbers happened on the Conservative Party's watch. And the skilled visa system was good-intentioned. It was meant to be the points-based system for genuine professions we were severely lacking in that was helping the national interest and helping the economy to prosper. You cannot say that could possibly apply to a dog groomer or a halal butcher or a fast food worker. So, yes, we can all agree that this is simply baffling at best, or gross incompetence or abuse at worst. But you must accept, Kevin Foster, this happened on the Conservative Party's watch.
Yeah, Martin, I'm not going to sit here and say that all these issues started on the 5th of July last year. And the numbers we've just been talking about, obviously, were the first 10 months, which included the period before the general election. And, I'm probably like, I suspect Robert Jenrick was when he was Immigration Minister before his resignation, was very much back in 2 years ago wanting to see some changes made, once we come out the pandemic. And one of the other things picked up in this report was that there'd been a review of the system in 2022, but not in detail since. And actually, there'd been plans due to come in place in 2022 to, for example, update salary thresholds post the pandemic, review the list of jobs that were on the skilled worker route, and to abolish, there was a discount for shortage occupations, which I always thought was a bit weird, actually, that, you discounted wages on jobs people didn't want to do. Well, that doesn't sound a way of encouraging more people to do them in the domestic labour market. But there is something that needs to be dealt with here, and ultimately it is about sorting out our asylum system, because if we can't actually make a choice about who's in this country when they've either their visas expired or they've arrived illegally, then it's going to be hard to have any system of migration control because people just seek ways around it.
OK, Kevin Foster, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight on Farage. Always a pleasure to have your company, former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster. Now, my panel is in the studio, my Monday night's regulars, the duo, Gawain Towler, former Reform spokesperson, and Nigel Nelson, GBNews' senior political commentator. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Nigel, I'm going to start with you. It's one thing to criticise the fact that clearly a fast food worker, somebody carving a kebab, in a takeaway of a Saturday night, by any metric, is not a skilled visa. No offence to kebab workers. Sure, they do a fantastic job.
Could you make a kebab? And
Yes.
Big Don kebab?
Yes, I could.
You could? I'm working at a kebab shop. Okay.
Absolutely,
right.
I could. Absolutely, I could.
Okay.
And I've got next to no skills in it. My point is, I could learn those skills in an afternoon. It wouldn't warrant a visa, OK? Dog groomer, halal butchers, beauty salon assistants. We have huge unemployment issues. That's one thing. Secondly, how can it possibly be sane that people come in on a visa, a work visa, and then suddenly it's too unsafe to go home and they have to claim asylum? We can talk about a tiny minority of civil war cases. That's clearly not the majority. This is a system rife for abuse.
Well, only if they get away with it. I mean, the point here is...
Well, they are. There's 5,300 remaining.
No, there's 5,000 who are claiming asylum. That doesn't mean they get it. So they would go through the asylum process like anybody else. The NAO says the claims are being made.
The acceptance rate is about 80-odd%.
Well, not on something like this, it wouldn't be. Look, if you've got a visa, you probably come from a safe country. So the chances of most of those people staying here are pretty unlikely. And the NAO doesn't tell us actually how many do, how many are successful. If all those people did actually get asylum, that'd be a whole different matter.
The fact of the matter is quite simple. You look at this data and it says something abundantly and manifestly clear, and that is you can apply to come to Britain as a skilled worker and there's next to no chance of ever being sent home, and it's ripe for abuse. The data backs it up.
Well, it doesn't back it up because we don't know that they're actually staying.
There's been a 100-fold increase.
There hasn't people claiming, and people claiming is not the same as actually getting asylum.
80% acceptance rate minimum.
Now you're talking about the overall rate of people who claim asylum. So the question really comes down to how many of those people actually claim asylum. Of course it's wrong. If they come here on a work visa, the visa expires, they should go home. It's perfectly straightforward. And that, I suspect, is what will happen to most of those people.
You do? You believe that?
That's what I suspect will happen. I don't know it will happen. I suspect it will happen.
Do you believe in Santa? Do you honestly believe that thousands of people at Gawain Towler who come in as a legitimate front door skilled visa worker and suddenly claim asylum will actually end up back on a flight home?
Obviously, we don't know what those asylum claims are, but we have heard people say in their last month, while slicing kebabs, they suddenly converted to Christianity, and they can't.
Or became LGBTQ.
And there are so many easy wheezes to stitch the asylum system. We've seen it. And the figures you quote about 80% or more of those who claim asylum, that is the case. And in comparison to our friends on the continent, we are double, triple. So if you want to claim asylum, if you want to stiff the system, if you want to come to a Western country, this is the one to come to. And if you come on a legal visa and you come on a work visa or come on a student visa and overstay and then claim, and I think there is the question mark over one or two people with civil wars and stuff of this sort, but if you then come to claim, the huge likelihood is you will pass. You will get asylum. Tens of thousands of people are getting asylum. And it's not just...
But you're talking about the overall system. The overall system. You're absolutely right. An awful lot of people are getting asylum, especially if they're coming here undocumented.
This is literally part of the overall... It's a chunk of the overall system, and those people...
Only if they're getting it. The point I'm trying to make is that if they are visa overstayers, they are sent home. The fact they've got a visa meant they probably came from a safe country.
Possibly hundreds of thousands of visa overstayers that we haven't sent back, and they're not even claiming asylum. Sorry, the whole system is bust.
Nigel, are you confident that, for example, a halal butcher can come to Britain and suddenly say, do you know what, if I go back to my host nation, now I've converted as a Christian or now I've suddenly become LGBTQ, are you confident that we have the capabilities and the rigour to assess that case and go, you're telling fibs, off you go, son? Or will it go through the system and round we go? We've got 800,000 people currently locked in the system, foreign nationals, who will receive indefinite leave to remain because they simply don't have the processing power.
They get appeals and appeals and appeals, and they stay and they stay and they stay, and in the end, there's so many more people claiming asylum that the system just clogs and they stay. And until such time as we short-circuit that system and just say no. Just no.
Yeah, but this is where we get to the point of then what do you do? Just saying no.
Well, they are foreign nationals. They can go home.
Well, if they come from a safe country, which most of these people will do, of course they can go home. And the process will go through... The process will be... if they turn
The process is also vastly expensive. So even by applying and then appealing a judgment, if they say, no, you've got to go, they'll appeal the judgment, they stay. In many cases, they're no longer working because they've expired their working visa, so therefore they're having to be...
Well, they should have the right to appeal. I mean, the decision should be appealed, and that's our legal system.
So somebody who's coming from a safe country, the judgment is, no, you can go, thank you very much, you've overstayed your visa, go. Oh, no, I'm going to appeal it. It's still a safe country. How many times, how long, how much money is spent?
Well, hang on a second.
And they no doubt require translators, and they no doubt require all sorts of other things.
A straightforward British value is British justice. So people must have the right to appeal a decision that they disagree with.
But being so broad-minded, your brain drops out. We are being taken for a ride by the world.
What you're saying is let's abandon the whole legal system.
No, they have an appeal, but this is asylum courts. So and the immigration courts. So maybe there comes a point where you say, if you're coming from a safe country, no.
In the meantime, a lot of people watching this will be thinking the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. Nigel, Gawain, always an absolute pleasure. Now, coming up next, new measures from the government are allowing criminals who've reoffended or broken probation to be released early once again. Back in a moment.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The secret about pancakes is a really good pan.
Right.
Because what you don't want the pancakes to do is sticking, so you're sort of scooping them out in look like scrambled pancakes.
Yeah. I think it's tradition, isn't it? The first one's always a bit rubbish, isn't it?
Mine always is.
That's always the first one goes either in the bin or usually my dad, to be fair. He gets the rubbish first. I'm sorry, Dad.
So it's a consistent, and the pan, a little bit of oil. Mm-hmm. You just want, and then the heat. It's trial and error.
Yeah. How much
pancakes? Heat? Well, you want them quite hot because you want to get this colour.
Yeah.
So you want them hot. And when you flip a pancake, you're going to be tossing the pancake. Whether you are or not, whether it's on the ceiling or wherever.
No, that's too complicated for me.
But, and not too big a pan.
Yeah.
OK. Not a wok.
Not a wok.
No.
Not a wok. No, not
Robert,
a wok.
OK, we have to ask the important question.
Should we get on to toppings?
Well, let's get on to toppings. Yeah. So we've got a few bits and bobs.
Now, Adam's favourite is, in my mind, controversial.
I'm curious what you think, Robert, because I really like strawberry jam.
I'll pass you the jam because that's your favourite.
Yeah. Now, is that in the kitchen?
Your pancakes look almost like scones, so you can probably...
Well, in this instance, this is going to be fantastic.
Some of our viewers have been writing in with theirs. We had someone saying banana and ice cream.
Banana ice cream, love it. Yeah.
Oh, right, OK.
Yeah,
someone said, now I found this really unusual, and I guess it's the sweet versus savoury debate. Someone said they have vegetable soup.
You what?
Yeah. I don't know if that was serious or not, but, I mean, each their own. I'm going to go really traditional for my first one and have some lemon and sugar.
Robert, what do you have?
Lemon and sugar, for me, on a very, very flat, beautiful, warm pancake that you fold over and then fold over again. So you can almost make them into some sort of crepe Suzette shape.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives. Again, down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, new measures from the government are allowing criminals who have reoffended or even broken their probation terms to be released early once again under the guise of easing overcrowding. Now, last month, officials were told to fast-track the re-release of prisoners, even those recalled after previous offences. More than 1,000 inmates are now under review, with up to 400 potentially back on the streets at any time in the given future. So that could be chunks of 400 released again as they wish. But concerns are mounting from probation officers that this new policy bypasses parole board checks, leaving the decision to justice ministers rather than independent evaluations, people who actually know what they're talking about. Now, is this the right move, or are we just re-releasing yet more criminals into communities with serious risks to public safety? Well, I'm delighted to say now I'm joined to discuss this by the retired prison governor, Vanessa Frake. Vanessa, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How many times have you and I had this conversation before? It just seems that public safety is being compromised. Prisons are full, so their answer is to dump the cons onto communities, and the probation service don't seem equipped to handle them on the outside. QED, is the British public being placed at increased risk?
Good evening, Martin, yet again. Look, you know, this is pie in the sky from this government again, I think, to try and rescue prisons from overcrowding. I mean, they're saying that by 2026 we'll be at capacity again, but I would imagine personally that will be much sooner if things continue in the vein that they are. This latest initiative, again, is done by government that has no idea of the consequences of their fly-by-night statements. I think it's a very dangerous and slippery, slidey road to go down by completely bypassing the parole board, who have all the details at their fingertips, and again puts increasing pressure on our already over 102% capacity of probation service, you know, to monitor these individuals. I think in all of this, I think we've forgotten about the victims of crime. I think it's important that, you know, justices seem to have been served. And it just seems that this government is determined to release prisoners willy-nilly just to make spaces. And I think it's a very worrying time for a prison service that's already on its knees, quite frankly.
And Vanessa, what's the solution to this? I mean, we have 10,000 foreign nationals languishing in Britain jails, many of them from countries which we have returns deals with. Albania, I think we have like 1,500 Albanians in British NICs. I think we've sent eight back to Albania. How about dealing with issues like that rather than releasing dangerous cons and dumping them into communities?
I don't disagree with you, Martin. I think that the government has been very, very slow on reducing the numbers, and I actually think it's running at about 12% of our current prison population is foreign national prisoners. I think they've been very slow at getting shot of these people, but you know, you only have to look at the boats coming over and the fact that we can't get rid of the people that come over on the boats. So why suddenly should we be able to get rid of them in prison? The only people that make money out of this are the lawyers who fight, you know, tooth and nail under the surmise of the ECHR, you know, and I think that something somewhere will have to give, and unfortunately my worry is that somebody will be released who goes on to commit a horrific crime.
You know, Vanessa, I really wish this was the last time we had this conversation. I fear it won't be, and I think you're absolutely right. I think somebody's going to get seriously hurt or worse before there's a huge wake-up call. Vanessa Frake, always a pleasure to have your company on GB News. Thank you very, very much as ever. Well, back to my panel now. Gawain Towler, former Reform spokesman, and Nigel Nelson, GB News' senior political commentator. Gawain, I'm going to start with you this time. It's like Groundhog Day on all of these stories, on early release, on visa abuse, on illegal immigrants coming over in greater and greater numbers. But this is particularly concerning because we seem to have a government at the moment that almost wants to abolish prisons.
I don't think they want to abolish prisons, but they inherited a dreadful system from the Tories. This is true. However, I mean, if I was a probation officer, or the parole board. What's the point of having a parole board if the government's going to have some civil servant in the Ministry of Justice making decisions over possibly dangerous criminals? One suggestion I would have, which might at least concentrate minds, if one is a victim of a crime from somebody who has been released twice early, in this instance, you should be able to sue the government for damages. If that person should be in jail and has been released early because the government is stiffing the system again, that if you are a victim of crime, you should be able to sue because that person should not be out. That person should be inside finishing their sentence. So I believe passionately that if your house is robbed, if you're burgled, if you're beaten up, if there's a heinous crime, you should at least be able to say, this man or woman, this man should not be in public. They should not be able to commit a crime because they should be in prison. And they've been let out early. And that is a decision of this minister. This is a decision of this government to let them out.
Nigel Nelson, we have the conversation so often about two-tier justice going soft on crime. Shabana Mahmood was proposing the two-tier justice system, which is coming into law on April 1st. They had the chance to stop it. They didn't. It will give preferential treatment to ethnic minorities, to LGBTQ people, white working class, particularly men, more likely to go inside in the first place. And now, when prisons are full, they're letting people out who are clearly a public menace, clearly a public risk, and the entire system is broken. On the one hand, we just seem to have a Labour Party which is perpetually soft on justice, unless you're posting Facebook memes.
Well, I mean, you've hit the nub of it. The entire system is broken. And as, first of all, there aren't enough prison places. Prisons are overcrowded because we send too many people there. So you're going to have to do something. You can't send any more.
Do we send too many people to prison?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we send far too many people to prison.
So which crime shouldn't go to prison?
Any that would carry a sentence of under 6 months, forget about those.
Such as, what sort of crime should not be punished?
Shoplifting?
It could be shoplifting, yeah.
Well, they don't follow shoplifting anyhow. You can't get arrested for shoplifting.
I mean, it could be any crime that actually carries a sentence of under 6 months. You abolish 6-month sentences. David Gauke is doing a sentencing review at the moment. He is in favour of doing that. Whether he will be at the end of the review, we'll have to see.
So
if you did that, you would free up 30,000 places a year. That's a third of the current prison population.
But surely you
wouldn't have a problem.
But those criminals would not be in jail and therefore would be continuing to commit crime. This is crazy. The whole point about this thing is that these people would be let out early, committing a crime and being let out early again.
Prison should be for people who are dangerous. It should be there to protect the public. People who get sentences of under 6 months are unlikely.
If shoplifting is not dangerous, well, it feels like if somebody's shoplifting, but as I say, they don't get banged up anyhow.
If somebody knocks an old lady over the head with a bat or something like that,
of course, that is a higher tariff, of course.
You keep them in prison. And one of the points that Vanessa made, it's not just the prison system that's broken. We're also talking about the probation system. I agree that people should actually, probation officers should be able to talk to speak to prisoners before they're released. As Vanessa said,
but she said it's 102%.
Over 100% capacity.
How many times do we let the shoplifter off before he clumps an old Doris over the head?
It's a broken
Isn't that the point?
No.
They get away with repeated
There is no evidence of that. That if you send people to prison,
there isn't evidence that you start small and go big.
They're more likely to commit crime when they come out. So if you have proper community punishments, that would ease up the prison spaces and deal with the people who are the perpetrators.
OK, well, that one's going to roll and roll and roll. Gawain Towler and Nigel Nelson, thank you very, very much for joining us on that heated, spirited and fair debate. Now, coming up next, Brits should expect to be conscripted to war if we get dragged into a war with Russia. Is that what you think should happen? It seems to me that most broke Brits wouldn't even find. How about we send the politicians first? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on Farage on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, here's your latest winter sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. There'll be some unsettled weather across Iberia over the next few days. Elsewhere, some sunshine and a few showers too. As for Tuesday, we can expect a few showers across the Canaries, Madeira, some more persistent rain across parts of Spain and Portugal. The central Med looks brighter, 1 or 2 showers around, and then we run into some more persistent rain again across parts of Greece with some hill snow in places here too. As for the rest of the week, well, there'll be some warm sunshine to contend with, 1 or 2 showers too, and some more persistent rain out across western spots.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, a senior member of the Defence Select Committee has warned that fighting-age Britons should expect to be conscripted if the UK goes to war with Russia. Mike Martin, an Afghanistan veteran and Liberal Democrat MP for Tunbridge Wells, said that there is a significant chance of conflict and that mass conscription would be inevitable. He also argued that strengthening the military now would act as a deterrent, reducing the risk of that war breaking out. Now, this warning comes amid growing concerns over escalating tensions with Russia and the Prime Minister's plan for a coalition of the willing force in Ukraine. So, would you be willing to be conscripted and sent to fight on the front line? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by James Sunderland, the former Conservative and the military officer, and of course my panel, Gawain Towler, former Reform spokesman, and Nigel Nelson, GB News' senior political correspondent. Let's start with you, James Sunderland. The very notion that we still live in an era where trench warfare could break out will come as a shock to some. But here's the bigger point. Poll after poll after poll shows that Brits wouldn't be prepared to take arms for king or queen and country anyway. 38% of the under-40s polled in January would refuse. Only 58% even agree that we should send Brits to Ukraine at all. Why on earth would anybody want to fight for Britain at the moment? They hate the working classes, who historically have been the ones who had to go and cop the bullets.
Well, Martin, I'm not here, of course, to advocate for conscription, but any responsible government looking at how we defend our nation and that of our allies may have to consider it. We've had generations of people in the UK since 1945 who have perhaps taken their security for granted, relative prosperity, of course, and I think that ultimately we may have to accept the fact that the world is a dangerous place, the fact that Russia are clearly more aggressive and more dangerous now than perhaps at any time since the Cold War, and if the balloon goes up, if there's a requirement for us to go to war, perhaps because Russia's invaded an Article 5 NATO country, then so be it. And it may well be that our armed forces have been hollowed out to the extent where we have spent the peace dividend. Therefore, we need to find innovative ways of providing that capability.
But we've got the smallest army since the Napoleonic era. The RAF is as small as it's ever been since its inception in World War I. So few sailors were decommissioning ships. How are we going to recruit? Conscription would mean what? Enforced conscription? You have to go and do it. People will be leaving the country in droves, wouldn't they not?
That's the definition of conscription. It's national service. You could call it a volunteer army. But ultimately, what it would mean is that we rely upon our regular forces, Army, Navy, RAF to deploy. And then to backfill them, we'd need reserves. We need regular reserves. We need people like me, ex-regulars, to come back into uniform, perhaps. There's a scary thought. But also possibility of conscripts. If we need people to do this work, noting that the armed forces have been hollowed out, we may have to go down that road. And, of course, that may require legislation to do it.
Do you honestly think, when you look around the streets of Britain now, that there's a social demographic of people that believe enough in the country to fight? Is there the physical capability? Most people now would be offended about their pronouns being offended. Do we seriously have the actual capability? And why not send people like Mike Martin? They want to send the politicians. Lead by example.
Well, I think it's been, to be fair, but I can tell you from experience that in Afghanistan and Iraq, we asked a lot of things of our young people who stepped up to the plate. I saw remarkable people doing remarkable things, and I think that that's in everyone. But ultimately, to do that, it's going to require training. It's going to require people. They've got to step forward. Of course, conscription involves necessity. It's compulsory mobilisation, and therefore we have to rely upon our good people of the UK to step up, to train, and to perhaps wield a bayonet.
OK, James, and thank you for joining us. Let's go to my panel now. I'm going to start with you, Nigel Nelson. Isn't the problem here is that we have a government in power that could expect young people to go and fight for a country which the government itself doesn't seem to particularly value? And what I mean by that is, a point I mentioned there with James Sunderland, historically it's the white working class lads that have been sent to the front line, into the meat grinder. Now they're all far right. Those same people are hated by those in the governing system. I hate to say that, but that's what they tell me all the time. They're the people that be expected to fight, and the country doesn't seem to value them.
Well, the point really is it's not going to happen, is it? I mean, this is not 1939. So in the event of a war with Russia, and we are getting ahead of ourselves that actually that is likely to happen, you're talking about 2 million NATO troops, and that's without US help. If the US joins in, you're talking about 3.5 million troops. The Russians can muster 500,000. There'd be no need for conscription if you're talking about a straightforward land war all over again. The danger, obviously, is it won't be a land war, it would end up being a nuclear one.
Well, I say, what's straightforward about a war in the age of nuclear armaments? I mean, this is bonkers.
Well, Ukraine is fighting a nuclear-powered Russia already. So, actually, war does take place against nuclear-powered nations. And there is the whole mad aspect that the Russians, as the song says, the Russians love their children too, to a certain extent. They do not want a nuclear war. But the possibility of a conventional war. And one of the things that is crazy, since options for change, as you mentioned, is for decades now, we have been untraining ourselves from a serious tank-based land war in Northern Europe. And oh dear. So we've basically untrained that, and we've been focusing on other things. And now the most likely option is exactly what we've not been training for, because we have not expected it. And we've found ourselves in that. And I take up what Mr. Sunderland was saying, and that is, we have, 73,000 regular army. If you've got conscription, those conscripts have to be trained by people who know what they're doing. Now, if you've got tens of thousands of soldiers being conscripted, those 73,000 will not be out fighting, they will be training, because you need them to train. And they'll be training, as you point out, many people who are, if this scenario occurs, many people who don't want to be there at all, and so they'll be recalcitrant. And it'll be really difficult to train people who don't want to be conscripted.
But why would the scenario occur anyway if you've got NATO there to actually put the troops in the first place?
Because if we are under threat, then that is, as a total war situation, in a total war situation, then I don't think the current NATO capacity, these numbers are in some way ghost numbers. They're not entirely real numbers. The actual capable fighting
forces. Well, hang on, there's a 300,000 strong rapid reaction force that can go into action immediately.
You think?
Well, it's there. It's been trained for that very purpose.
300,000 strong rapid reaction. I'm sorry. It's like the rapid units in the European Union military.
OK, gentlemen,
it doesn't work like that.
Let's get James Sunderland in at this point. And you were talking about wanting to make comment on the Defence Select Committee itself.
Yeah, I think that members of the Defence Select Committee are able to make public comments on this. We've had that over the weekend, and he may not be wrong. But what's interesting here is the fact that, I chaired the Armed Forces Bill Select Committee in 2021. There's another Armed Forces Bill about to come in 2026. I mean, this could be a good opportunity for changing legislation so that we can more easily mobilise members of our civilian population. Now, the SDSR, the Defence Review, is happening at the moment. I'm not party to the detail, but it's quite clear already that the Prime Minister has spoken publicly about a whole-of-society approach to this. So who knows what's going to be in it. But we do have to enhance capability. Our armed forces are not big enough. We do have to spend more money on defence. 2.5%, yes, absolutely. 3%, in my view, is where we need to be going. We have got to start spending money on defence again because there is a real threat and aggressor in Europe, and the Russians are a menace, and we can't afford to forget that.
OK, we have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much. James Sunderland, Gawain Towler and Nigel Nelson. Fascinating debate. Thank you very, very much. Now, for tonight's What the Farage Forgets high-tech alarms, the Metropolitan Police are now telling homeowners to fight crime with gardening. In a bid to leaf burglars out in the cold, coppers are encouraging Londoners to plant thorny shrubs like firethorn, barberry and hawthorn to create a natural defence against break-ins. Their new leaflet advises residents to keep hedges high, add trellises and even consider a gravel driveway, because nothing says criminal mastermind like being fooled by crunchy stones. Now, last year, 82% of burglary cases went unsolved, so it might take more than a few prickly plants or a bit of gravel to turn the tide. Perhaps they should start rooting out the real problem instead. Now, coming up next, the former chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, who was suspended after he said that the Met had racism of low expectations on GB News. Well, he's now taking his fight to the High Court. I'll be speaking to him next on the show. You'll not want to miss it.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours we'll see clearing skies widely across the UK, leading to a chilly night, but sunny for most of us on Tuesday. High pressure in charge at the moment, that's keeping things relatively settled. It's also brought a lot of cloud through Monday from the east and southeast, but that cloud's now drifting away. It's going to become confined to parts of northern and western Scotland, Northern Ireland and a few spots through Wales and Western England overnight. Otherwise, widespread clear skies form, and under those clear skies a widespread frost is expected, particularly for northern England as well as Scotland, with temperatures in some spots below -5°C. A bit of a breeze in the south will prevent a frost here, despite blue skies to wake up to, and actually plenty of sunshine, so out of the wind. As temperatures rise through the day, it is going to feel a bit more pleasant through much of England and Wales. Northern Ireland stays with the cloud for the time being, and some patches will also continue to affect the west and northwest of Scotland, especially towards Shetland, but elsewhere across Scotland, barely a cloud in sight, and we'll keep those long spells of sunshine going right the way through the day. I think for many places it will be a breezier day compared with the last few, certainly noticeable for the south and the east, and that's a cold wind, so temperatures of 11 or 12 Celsius might not feel that pleasant in the wind, but out of the wind with the increasingly strong sunshine, feeling very warm indeed. Now, on Wednesday morning, we'll start off similar to Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. Sunnier skies for northwestern parts of the UK compared with Tuesday, but otherwise it's a similar day. Plenty of blue skies and dry weather, although a change is on the way. Through Thursday and into Friday, we'll see a bit more cloud arrive in the west and southwest, along with a few showers, but at the same time, it turns warmer.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News. We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now onto a frankly shocking story. Rick Pryor, the chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, was suspended in October after a GB News interview with my colleague Charlie Peters, in which he accused the Met's leadership of failing officers by embracing the racism of low expectations. Let's take a listen.
The behaviour of certain individuals clearly falls below that of which society expects. I think it's incumbent on police leaders to support their officers who are charged with dealing with these type of incidents to come out and call out that behaviour. And I mean, the example of which I relate this to was the recent Croydon bus incident matter, where it was clear that the lady in question behaved poorly. It's a quite reasonable expectation of society that if you travel on transport, London transport, on the buses, the trains, you know that if you are asked to produce a valid ticket for travel, you show that ticket. Had that happened in this case, there would have been no incident. And so it was the behaviour of the lady in question that instigated the whole matter.
Well, now there's been a significant development on this story we can tell you tonight on Farage, because with the help of the Free Speech Union, he is taking the Police Federation to the High Court, arguing that his suspension was an unlawful breach of his free speech and his duty to defend rank and file officers. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by that man in the studio, the chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, Rick Pryor. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I remember when I saw this interview back in October, you said that white cops hesitated when dealing with ethnic minorities over fears of malicious or vexatious racism claims. I was contacted by scores and scores of coppers and people who worked in the force after, and they all agreed with you. So why were you suspended? And tell us about this latest breakthrough, and you think you might have a chance to right your bad name.
Well, back in the interview in October, I was actually making a point that all officers are hesitating over the fear of engaging in proactive duties, i.e. stop and search, that type of duty, for fear of attracting a complaint, and particularly a vexatious complaint that involves race. And I said that, that particularly does affect white officers, but I wasn't limiting it to white officers. And that was really feeding into the whole crisis of confidence that the Commissioner has talked about before, and other senior officers, where officers that I represent are hesitating over these type of proactive duties. And we've seen stop and search decrease significantly. And we've also seen knife crime and violent crime rise significantly as well. So that was the angle I was going on, as well as the clip that you've just shown as well, of the fact that I was saying it's incumbent on police leaders to call out poor behaviour when they see it, irrespective of where that poor behaviour is coming from. So, that's my job. I'm an elected official, elected to represent 30,000 Metropolitan Police officers, and, importantly, to actually act in the public interest as well. That was legislated for post-Normanton review after the unfortunate Plebgate incident that occurred. So me having been cancelled and suspended and silenced by the Police Federation of England and Wales has not only removed my voice from the 30,000 officers that I'm elected, democratically elected to represent, but also removes my public interest function to putting these things out in the public domain for the discourse to take place.
So, Rick, now the Free Speech Union has come forward to help you. What does that look like and what happens next?
The Free Speech Union have been absolutely fantastic to me, and I'd like to publicly go on record to thank Lord Toby Young and Bryn Harris as well for the Free Speech Union, who've been behind me and supporting me right from the off. So, you know, they employed lawyers to, or instructed lawyers to look at this for me, and it was the opinion of the lawyers that I'd been treated unlawfully and also disproportionately. And as a consequence of that, we are now taking the Police Federation of England and Wales to the High Court to judicially review the decision to suspend me. And as a consequence, all of my insurance that I take out through the Police Federation, they've got clauses in not just their funding rules, but also the funding rules from separate insurance policies I've taken out through them, that they won't fund anything to do with taking action against them.
So there's a crowdfunder for this, is there?
So there's a crowd fund which has been launched by the Free Speech Union to protect me from bankruptcy should the result go against me. But I'm confident that we'll succeed in this, which is why I'm progressing with it.
OK, well, good luck with that. And these things aren't cheap, so there's a crowdfunder online. People can get involved in that. Where can they find it?
I haven't seen the links or anything yet, but I'm sure it'll be published on the Free Speech Union website and the newsletters that they send out. So, yeah, look at the Free Speech Union and the publicity that they're going to help me with. Rick
Pryor, thank you very, very much for coming in tonight on to Farage. Now we have a statement to read out because a spokesman for the Police Federation of England and Wales said this. The Metropolitan Police Federation chair was suspended pending an investigation which is ongoing. In terms of the judicial review, it would be inappropriate for us to comment on a specific legal case. However, the Federation's governance processes are set out in statutory regulation, which we comply with fully at all times. Now, coming up next is State of the Nation, of course, and that is with Jacob Rees-Mogg. So, Jacob, what's on your menu?
Well, what we're going to be talking about, first of all, is Labour running away from welfare reform. There's one big, easy reform they could do. There are 1 million people who are born abroad, who are not British citizens, who are getting benefits, a total of £7.5 billion worth of benefits that should stop tomorrow. If you are an immigrant to this country, you should not be a cost to this country. That must be a basic principle of our welfare system. They should also clearly freeze benefits this year. Inflation is only 1.7%. The budget's out of control. We're going to be talking about Labour running away from the need to reform welfare, paid for, of course, by all the taxpayers who are watching GB News.
And I believe you've got Catherine Birbalsingh on your show tonight.
I've got Catherine Birbalsingh on to talk about Labour's new education bill, which seems to me to be a spiteful attempt to undermine excellence, and the Education Secretary doesn't much seem to like Catherine Birbalsingh, who's been one of the foremost educators in this country, known as the strictest headmistress in the land.
She'll whip you into shape on State of the Nation tonight.
I shall be terrified.
Fantastic. So thank you very, very much to Rick Pryor and to Jacob Rees-Mogg. State of the Nation is up next. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Until then, here's your weather with Aidan McGibbon. Have a fantastic St Patrick's Day evening.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours, we'll see clearing skies widely across the UK, leading to a chilly night, but sunny for most of us on Tuesday. High pressure in charge at the moment. That's keeping things relatively settled. It's also brought a lot of cloud through Monday from the east and southeast, but that cloud's now drifting away. It's going to become confined to parts of northern and western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and a few spots through Wales and Western England overnight. Otherwise, widespread clear skies form, and under those clear skies, a widespread frost is expected, particularly for northern England as well as Scotland, with temperatures in some spots below -5 Celsius. A bit of a breeze in the south will prevent a frost here, despite blue skies to wake up to, and actually plenty of sunshine, so out of the wind. As temperatures rise through the day, it is going to feel a bit more pleasant through much of England and Wales. Northern Ireland stays with the cloud for the time being, and some patches will also continue to affect the west and northwest of Scotland, especially towards Shetland. But Elsewhere across Scotland, barely a cloud in sight, and we'll keep those long spells of sunshine going right the way through the day. I think for many places it will be a breezier day compared with the last few, certainly noticeable for the south and the east, and that's a cold wind, so temperatures of 11 or 12 Celsius might not feel that pleasant in the wind, but out of the wind with the increasingly strong sunshine, feeling very warm indeed. Now, on Wednesday morning, we'll start off similar to Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. Sunnier skies for northwestern parts of the UK compared with Tuesday, but otherwise it's a similar day. Plenty of blue skies and dry weather, although a change is on the way. Through Thursday and into Friday, we'll see a bit more cloud arrive in the west and southwest, along with a few showers, but at the same time, it turns warmer.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner of the Great British Giveaway, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but two sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation Tonight. The government is on the brink of backing down on welfare reforms, but with more than 1 million foreigners claiming welfare, I will be revealing why we must solve this bankruptcy-inducing crisis. As the number of failed asylum seekers appealing their decisions soars by 500%, we will be looking at how Donald Trump's deportation plan is working on the Mexican border. The government has faced an excoriating attack on its schools bill from the former Chief Inspector of Ofsted. Tonight, I'll be joined by Britain's strictest head